Avoid
Hello,
cat.
everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 151. Are you on the masculinity to fascism pipeline? Where we're going to be responding to intersectional bell hooks fanatic Bryony Claire. I think she's New Zealand is producing some of the finest feminists these days, and by finest I mean like black hole rage inducing. And she's been connecting the dots on masculinity and its link to fascism, especially I guess masculinity in confidence, but also masculinity when in crisis, when men suffer, they make lives worse for women. Ultimately,
so masculinity both when it's
like a masculinity in its ascension is bad because it's masculinity, but also when masculinity is in a state of disarray and crisis, it's also bad. It's almost like it's just bad.
Almost like
unless it's like 100% in service to women. She does say that there is positive masculinity, so it's like, well, there must be something. Oh, I see. It's when men are doing exactly what you want all the time without question. I see.
And also taking blame for having done exactly
and
what
taking
you
blame for everything
that somehow had a negative effect on you. Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. Men only exist as women's will, which they don't have to take responsibility for, because if they did, then they'd have to accept that yesterday they chose something that today they found inconvenient or upsetting or impactful in a way that they don't like today. And they would have to take responsibility for having chosen to do that. And that's men's task too. That's men's.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at Bryony Claire. Do you want to do some things before we do that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So this was a request by Richard Beer. So thank you, Richard Beer, for this lovely request. And I did, in fact, go through every single one of Bryony's sources. And I have actually a very petty request of Brian that we go to exactly the time code 416, because I am going to
restarting there.
But we don't have to start. I want to start there. We don't have to continue on from there.
We should at least play her little like super snarky, passive aggressive, smug intro, and then which is purely just just to set the tone, and then we can get into the.
Well, specifically, I want to go to 416 because that's where she brags about her sources. And I, as much as I want to tear into her for the bullshit, I would like to actually point out to her and her audience, which will never see this. But anyway, we'll get to it when we get to 416. I have a particular bone to pick with 416. If you want to do the intro, that's fine. But at some point,
we'll
early
get to
on.
it. All right.
So if you would like to send us a message at any time throughout the stream, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Whatever amount you send, very much appreciated, and it's the very best way to send us that amount, because we don't get YouTube's gigantic cookie monster bite out of our super chats, and you get to give a little more space. We give you a little more space in our tube, and you don't have to send your comment through YouTube's comment enhancement system. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us those comments and potentially tips. And I have not opened up the monthly fundraiser, but I will be doing that shortly. And when that is available, it will be available at feedthebadger.com/support. So those are the things. Shall we?
All right, let's go ahead and listen to Bryony Claire talk about the masculinity crisis to fascism pipeline.
Messaging of men struggling to be men has been around since Me Too happened in 2017. Guys are saying that they're scared to give a woman a compliment. They feel like they're going to be persecuted just for being a man. And then in comes Trump for his second win. After losing in 2020, he certainly made sure that people were going to be loyal to him this time. The messaging has been very clear. The measure of a man depends on how much he is respected by other men.
All right. We don't have to get into any of that, but yeah.
Yeah, just go to 416.
Let's jump ahead to 416.
Just for me.
Fine. Okay. Whatever.
Masculinity crisis even come into play. Well, we're exploring it today. That's why I've been working on this for literal months and reading some very heavy books and studies about this. My lovely patrons, you've already got the extended...
Stop. Nothing you read, nothing in your sources was heavy. Nothing required more than 3 brain cells, or perhaps just the ability to read. None of it did. We're talking about 5th grade level written, like for readers at a 5th grade level, opinion pieces in like CNN, right? These were not, this was not heavy reading. It was convenient.
USA Today.
USA Today, yeah. You read USA
Psychology
Today.
We can go. We'll show you guys the sources, so you guys.
Oh, good Lord! None of this was an actual. Maybe the Pew Research. Maybe the philosophical work on how Americans are developing their identities in the age of mass media, done by some psychologist in the 50s. I doubt she read the book. The Psychology Today. Nope, there was nothing. Nothing. I think there was some
Vanity Fair.
This was heavy reading, is it? This is heavy.
We Forum, Word in Black.
This
yeah,
is
National
reading,
Geographic, Reuters, USA Today. Yeah, NBC News.
I want to say, if you want to see heavy reading, just take a look at the titles in my bookshelf. Yes, I am book flexing. You are. I am the book Chad, and you are the other dude. You are the the virgin Bryony. Okay, let's
yeah.
That's all I wanted to say, is that she says she pretends to be so well researched on this topic. It took her months, guys, to read all of these like 1-page articles from news sources on the left that are all written to a 5th grade level. And this is heavy research.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
it's gotta be. All right. So let me see. First time code that I got here. Let's go 10 minutes and 32 seconds. So we're gonna talk a little bit about. I'm jumping ahead on her explanation of what fascism is, because essentially she lays out what fascism is, and I think we all know like how these people define it. And now it's time to connect that to men, because that's what men are. They're little every one of them is a little Mussolini.
You should be a monster. You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no. Wrong. You should be a monster.
Masculinity.
I think that's her friend of hers or something. I don't know. But
monster.
Obviously a feminist woman making fun of I guess men for being men.
Understand. Yeah,
that which she does not understand. And of course they try to frame Peterson's quote in a negative way, but it's just true. Like only people who don't understand that we don't live in a utopia right now, and that there is evil and hostility and danger, and you have to be on the lookout for that, and being weak and complacent and bending the knee is not going to protect you or the people you care about. And literally that falls on men whether they like it or not. Like that's just what the reality is. So some men, or most men, are going to be like, yeah, that's how we have to be. And women like this will shit on that because they don't want men standing up for themselves or being capable of violence, which they have to be. It's just the reality,
Mhm. Well, and it's funny because they probably defend the monster fucking or genre of romantic fiction.
Sure, probably like the werewolf, like smut. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
You ever see those ads on YouTube? There's like these weird like AI ads that are supposedly selling like fiction, and you'll see ads for them on YouTube, and they're always like, I think they're honestly, I think they're aimed at women, but they're like these weird like she was a vampire and yet she was like I don't know, like she desired more, and like it was like these really like cringy Twilight style fanfics that are becoming like available for purchase, and they're all like lurid and sexual and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is basically women's fiction. I mean, that's what I think it is. You were the one talking about what the state of fiction is today, and I think that's it, because boys aren't reading books because nobody's writing books for them. So anyway.
Yep. No, you're right. But I'm just pointing out that right now, people from this political spectrum are justifying erotic fiction around monsters, and yet condemning this guy for recognizing that women don't want. They don't want.
Well, he's not talking about. Peterson's not even talking about what women are attracted to.
Yeah, well,
he's simply talking about like, essentially what I think him and Joe Rogan were talking about was there is an effort to, essentially demonize masculinity, and he was basically making the defense for it and saying, no, we need it, like,
Yeah, but he was also saying that you don't just stay a monster; you learn to control.
No, it's all about a monster that's that has it under control. That's what he's saying. But they're leaving that out of the context, right? Because they want. See, what Bryony wants is for her audience to have a certain emotional reaction to that. So she doesn't like fill in the gap. She doesn't provide the context. She just shows Peterson, who's like, what is he known for? Crying a lot on camera when thinking about like what people are going through, especially men. And and then this is the clip she shares. Like, it's obviously manipulation. So and I think it's effective. I mean, but anyway, I think there's a little bit more of this clip.
Masculinity crisis has happened multiple times over the past 100 years even. Men are oppressed, you see, and you know what? I agree with you. But what men are oppressed by is patriarchal masculinity and the expectations put on men to be able to uphold this perfect image of what a man should be. And
all right. So men are oppressed by the fact that they're expected to become men in patriarchy, and rather than just remaining like women. Isn't that fascinating? It's like men are oppressed by the fact that they're not like us. Isn't that like basically every colonialist justification? Like not just like toxic colonialist justification in all of human history. We're liberating them from not being like us. And this is acceptable when women direct it at men. Oh, I'm liberating you from not being like me because I am the standard of being a human being. Even at patriarchy's worst, these women never say that patriarchy liberates women from femininity in order to be men. There's always, and even in their perception, and even in how they perceive patriarchy still allowed women to be feminine. It still regarded women as being feminine as being a good thing. Even the worst patriarchal oppressor that they can point to says that women should be feminine. They should be allowed to be feminine. They should be feminine. Right? But this woman is saying men should not be allowed to be men. They should not be allowed to be masculine, because it's not just oppression of women, guys. You're oppressing yourselves. Like I said so many times, 72 genders, 72 legitimate genders, and man is not one of them. And it's just such incredible entitled arrogance to say, yeah, no, men, you're being oppressed by not being me. Like, how narcissistic is that? And then she shows Don Draper. Let's give a little background to Don Draper. He is presented as an incredibly damaged human being. who is a product of sexual assault. Right? So he is a victim of sexual assault. A lot of his behaviors appear to be a result of it. And she's presenting this as the masculine ideal. His behavior is not the masculine ideal anywhere. It is the behavior of a damaged man. Right? And that was the thrill of it, wasn't it, ladies? You got to see this damaged man implode. It was like some kind of snuff porn without the murder. You know, it's like you get to vicariously live through his traumas and just so delicious, right? This man is not an ideal for anyone. It certainly wasn't even the ideal of the time, right? And I looked into this. One guy, you know, you always have the one guy who's like the feminist who has to sign off on this crap and say, oh yeah, there were this sort of captured the particles of the time in a kind of a loose net of meaning, and you know it's bullshit. But others said that there was no guy like this. There was maybe a guy who had problems with philandering, a guy might have problems with drinking or with secrecy, but this Don Draper having all of these problems, they said, yeah, there's no guy like that. And then there's other men, other actual advertising agents from the age that are actually think that the depiction in Mad Men is not only false, it's actually insulting to the time. To the men of the time, the men and the women who were part of that. And the guy who ended up being whoever this writer was who wrote this. I never watched
the guy who wrote for the script or
the
was
guy
Mad Men based on like a book or something? I watched Mad Men. I watched about 5 or 6 seasons of it, and I enjoyed it for what it was, which was just entertainment. I never thought it was history. I never thought it was a documentary. I knew the characters were like over the top, and I knew the people who created the show, you know, couldn't know what life was actually like in advertising in the 1960s. And they were just like, well, it was the 60s, right? So like chauvinism, white dudes, you know, and that was basically what they did, right? Homophobia, like there was like a whole bit where one of the guys was gay and it was like a big thing in the show. And I was just like, yeah, it's just TV. And it's actually, I got bored. It lost its edge when they killed off, what's his name? Richard Harris's son, who was one of the characters. I can't remember his name, but he commits suicide in the show. You know, I think it was from stress, and because he was going to lose his job or something. And of course, you know, that's a real men's issue that Mad Men, for whatever reason, nobody finds it relevant to bring up. Because we got to talk about how they're always drinking and womanizing and smoking and stuff. So, anyway, but I'm sorry, Allison. Go ahead. What were you going to say about the?
What I was going to say is that the man who Don Draper, like the name, Draper Daniels, I think, he was nothing like Don Draper. He didn't have the personality flaws. He ended up marrying a fellow ad executive.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't even know that. Yeah, there were female ad executives at the time, and this guy was based on married one. I think they were later because I don't think they had any children. But it was a marriage of equals. I'm sure that wasn't depicted in the show. And but you know, you always have the one guy who signs off on the feminist interpretation of everything, and then there was the other dude who was like, yeah, this is actually insulting to the people of the era. This is a poor depiction. He actually said the business side and the difficulty of it was depicted well, but then they of course drift into the personalities because everything has to be about drama, and that's where he felt like it really fell down because it didn't, like Don Draper doesn't represent any man that he knew. His flaws were taken from multiple men and put into one man, and they were considered flaws. So this guy who's an amalgam of everything that these men at that era would have considered a flaw in a man, and they put all those flaws together into a Frankensteinian creation. And Bryony right here says, yeah, that was the ideal of the time. What do you do with such phenomenal idiocy? And then
Yeah.
she has
What
the
you just said
audacity to think of herself as
is one of the
learned.
most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
That's what you respond with.
Yeah. The sheer chutzpah of this woman saying that she reads that anything that she's ejaculating in this lukewarm midwittery is a result of any kind of intellectual heavy lifting. That's what galls me most.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I got a super chat from Guild of Arcane Lore for $5.99 Canadian, $6.99 Canadian. Thank you. And they say patriarchy, if it exists, is to protect women, not oppress them. Thank you for that, Guild of Arcane Lore. All right. So
that is a significant number that he chose.
$6.99
Maybe.
in Canadian dollars, in Canadian pesos. Maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you for the pesos. Thank you for the monopoly money.
Oh
Guild of
God,
Arcane
we got
Lore.
one.
I'm joking. What?
Orpheus in the special chat says subjugating women isn't the same as protecting women. Lamau. No, it isn't. That's why that's not what men did in the past. They didn't subjugate women, they protected them. And in fact, that
Yes.
entire narrative that men subjugate women is used in order to manipulate their desire to protect women. You're part of a farce. Wake up. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Yeah, so let's do some more.
Image of what a man should be, and trying to succeed to those standards in capitalism. Patriarchal masculinity affects men by drafting them into wars, of having to fit into the provider role, to cutting themselves off from feeling and processing their emotions in a healthy way from youth, which means that they don't know how to handle them when they grow up. From the
Okay, let's just stop for just a second, okay? Masculinity is why men fight wars. Like, if only men weren't men, then there would never be war. Because women, they never fight. They never fight with each other. They never fight with other people. They never demand that men fight for them. One of the things that she leaves out, by the way, is all of the, when she says men are pressured into X, she doesn't say who pressures them. She doesn't say where any pressure to be masculine comes from.
Well,
It's not from other men. It's not from other men. And that's why she won't, because if it was from other men, she would just say it's from other men. But she doesn't say that because she knows that's a lie. So she just says, society does this. And what we need to do is we need to go find society and sit society down and give them a good talking to about how they are imposing things on men. But we can't do that because society is just like this abstract thing that you just use. So you can avoid saying, oh, this is something that women do. And the reason why is not because I don't think it's possible to get women to stop being women. Like, I think that's just kind of a pipe dream. Okay. But if we understand that women are the ones that create the pressure in most cases for men to behave a certain way, and men just do that because women ask the question and men answer generally, then feminists will have to shut up or they would have to go after women. And they know that's not going to work out. So what they do is they do it in little ways. Like if a woman comes across as a little bit too pro-man, then they attack that woman, call her a pick-me or whatever, a handmaiden of the patriarchy. And that's their way of like sort of giving women nudges, but they do it by, I think, creating like a chilling effect. You know, well, we went after this woman because she betrayed the sisterhood. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a society problem.
I just want to point out that feminism is the last excuse to target women because they're women for certain things.
It's the only one, right?
Yeah, it really is the only one. You know, you can justify doing anything to a woman if it's in the name of feminism. which is actually, I find that sort of scary, but I guess other women are okay with it. Okay, let's keep going.
Oh wait, we got another special chat. Do you want to respond to it? So
Oh, is it a paid special chat, or do we have
Brad? No, it's a free one. But Brad Wilson. I'm just gonna highlight this because this is I mean, this is useful because this is where people's default settings. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about how most people are on the default settings. This is the default settings. Okay. So Brad Wilson says, but if you were given the option to be able to break up with abusive partners, own land, vote, express opinions, drink alcohol, or not be able to do those things, what would you pick? And then he says, literally, this is so good. This is so good. Hold on. Literally less than 100 years ago, many of these thugs were still happening. I think he means things. Literally
just maybe 100 or so years ago. 100 and such a few years ago. That
do you want me to
women were still
legitimately
viewed as
answer this?
chattel.
I mean, like, yes, I guess if you give all the power to half the population, that can be good, but historically they have not been incredibly good. Okay, I'm listening, he says. So go ahead and respond if you want to, yeah.
Well, I'd have to reconstruct the argument here because gave all the power. Let's see, given the option to be able to break up with abusive parties. You don't know anything about the past. Go read about it.
Why do you think men would use power to harm women?
Yeah.
Why would they do that? How have we survived as a species from the beginning of our species, from before we were even humans? How is it possible that we're still around having kids and getting married and starting families if men were just putting women under their heel for all of history? How is that possible?
Let's do a thought experiment here. We have two tribes. One tribe, the men derive an identity from making sure their women are provided and protected, right? So they make sure that they're fed. They make sure to fight off the tiger or the lion, and they take an identity for it. So that's man's work, fair enough. So there's a bit of and in all hunter-gatherer tribes, this is the case. There is a demarcation of what's man's work and what's woman's work, but they take an identity from protecting women from predators and making sure they have food, right? And, and feeling comfortable and happy, right? Then we have a second tribe. And that tribe is the tribe of feminist andronicus. What that means is the man as envisioned by feminist conjecture. So you know how we have economic theories, and usually they have to simplify people's behavior into a sort of an organism that doesn't resemble a human being, which we call Homo economicus. This is feminist andronicus, the feminist man as envisioned by feminist conjecture. We have a tribe of feminist andronicus. They prioritize using rape and beatings to keep their women in line. They make their women work for them. They subjugate them in the way that past societies subjugated slaves. They ensure that women are the ones going after the deadly predators, right? Which, at the end of about 10 years, which tribe survives? Okay, let's move on.
All right. Well, one more thing. He's kind of challenging you, though. He says, okay, let me ask you this. Why do you think so many people have Mongol DNA in them today?
Because women really like conquerors. I mean, we assume that it's all rape, don't we?
We do. Why do we assume that, Allison?
Why do we assume that?
Why do we assume that? We don't know. Like, you couldn't even prove it with a rape kit. The only thing you could prove is that sex happened. So why do we assume that? Like, where do our assumptions come from before we even get into the data?
But let me ask him, is he talking about the migration of the steppe people? No.
He says it's all rape. It's documented. It's all rape.
With the Mongols?
Apparently, yeah.
Are you okay? All right.
Well, that means that Genghis Khan is basically all men. This is what we all are now. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So we live in the feminist andronicus is now Genghis Khan. All right. It isn't an issue of Mongols
Genghis Khan is an example of one man who has access to multiple women, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in the dating market right now? right now, what's happening?
Well,
A
but
very
if you
small
go back
percentage
to
of men are getting access to a large number of women based on what? Their status.
Yeah, based on their looks, based on their personality type, you know, in some cases based on their ability to do violence to other men. Like, here's the thing. Like, the other thing is that when the Mongols came through, they killed all the men. So if the women want a child, who's it going to be with?
Yeah, what happened to the men of the tribes that the Mongols
Yeah.
conquered? Oh, but that doesn't matter because they were killed by men.
Why would men
Therefore,
construct
it
a
doesn't
system?
matter. Right.
Why
It's
would
like
men
how
construct a
it's like how
system?
prison rape doesn't matter. The male victims of prison rape don't matter because they're raped by men. So like when men do something, it cancels out any suffering that men experience.
Why would men construct a system in which they have to kill each other to get reproductive opportunities? What does that make sense? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And
All
also
right, anyway.
I actually did some analysis. It might be simply in part that we have Genghis Khan's or DNA. Like, I think that we actually have like a DNA sample because he's a famous guy and he was buried somewhere that we could actually locate. If we just found random Mongol peasant or random Chinese dude from that far back and had his DNA and then just calculated how many descendants he'd have, it probably wouldn't be that dissimilar. And the reason why is because of just, you know, each generation, like we go far enough back, we're all like 10th cousins.
Oh, I mean, yeah, if you're cherry picking one guy who was a conqueror who had sired lots of children, and then you're using that to support the argument of like historical oppression of women by men everywhere, then that's the straw man. Like I don't know if I have Genghis Khan in my line, but that doesn't make me a better person than someone that, you know, than another guy that does. And again, I think that the truth is that it's probably not simply, you know, people just getting dominated by men everywhere. I think that a lot of times women also just, they made the choice. They were like, well, I guess we're a part of this tribe now. And that's it. They were like, we're time to change our fashion sense and language because that was the world we lived in, you know?
Okay. So the other thing is that women raping men is also documented in the past. I don't know about the Mongols raping people being specifically documented, but if it was, then it would have been documented in a legal.
You see Genghis Khan like with a line of women and he's telling some other guy, write that down.
Oh God.
It's ancient history. Too soon? Too soon?
Okay.
Is that too close to home?
Oh man, I'm skeptical on the documentation, but I'd have to look at it. But the other thing is that we have documentation of women raping men. Does that mean that every woman is a rapist and has created a matriarchy in which rape is used to subjugate men? Like, look at the story The Handmaid's Tale is based on. That's like, remember when we went through that? I think it was
the thing out of the Bible, right? It was
Joseph. No,
it was from the old, I believe it was the Old Testament. I forget.
Yeah, the Old Testament. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
I'm more terrible with names because, you know, I get nervous on stream, so half my brain shuts down. But it was Jacob. I think it was Jacob. But anyway, you could have.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. It was Jacob. Yeah.
You could have just retitled that entire biblical story as "How Can We Traumatize Jacob Today?" Because he was subject to sexual assault,
exploitation,
rape by deception,
and
sexual
assault,
exploitation. He was prostituted by one of his wives to another of his wives for a mandrake root. Like, the guy and his one wife actually demanded that he have sex with her or she was going to kill herself. I mean, you read that story and somehow Margaret Atwood took a story that was wall to wall the sexual abuse of a man in the Bible and turned it into The Handmaid's Tale. that is prototypical feminism. It's like, oh, men are victims of something, but how can we return this into women being victims of it? Oh man. Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
All right. Anyway, let's keep going. And now, so one thing you guys will notice is that Bryony Claire loves like movies and TV. So she'll often reference it, which is hilarious because it's completely useless to have a serious discussion. Oh, here's a fictional account. I'm going to use this to make my point. And it's like, yeah, but that's made up. Anyway.
The sheer concept of masculinity being so fragile that any sliver of doubt that gets thrown your way means that you have to fight to defend your manhood. And the absolute crushing weight of trying to be the standard and have all of the correct symbols of
Okay, can I just say real quick, that scene in American Psycho with the business cards, it's absolutely absurd, which is why everybody loves it. It's not because men are seriously thinking, yeah, that's totally me, guys. Like, no, it's a ridiculously absurd scene. That's why it's so funny. I don't know if you understand like comedy, Bryony Claire, but that scene is on purpose stupid. Like we always make reference to it, my friends and I, whenever we do anything. Oh, that's bone, And the font is something called Cillian Rail. Let's see Paul Allen's Patreon. Right, and it's so great. I love it. That's my favorite part of that movie. Like, it's everybody's favorite. But anyway, and she's like, "This is proof of masculinity in crisis." Oh my God, ladies, why do you take things so seriously? I got a super chat from the Assassin of the Gray for $20. Thank you, Assassin of the Gray. And he says the entire notion of The Handmaid's Tale makes no sense. In a Western civilization dealing with an extinction level event, fertile women would be the new celebrity class, weighted on hand and foot, who could do no wrong. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think that what's her name? The person who wrote it, I forget her name, but she thought she cooked. And a lot of women think she did. Like, this is what I mean. Like, we joke about how like kind of low IQ and simplistic these arguments are, but like they're really popular with normie midwits that like to feel smart. Anyway, all right.
masculinity when we're in a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis, where it's really incredibly hard to get a job, let alone a well-paying and secure job. And wealth disparity has only gotten worse from 2020 with the pandemic starting there. We can't forget how many companies are basically oligarchies now at this point from the amount of other brands.
Huh?
That was the point. It was enforced consumption, which made many people massively rich.
And Bryony Claire supported it. Like, she still thinks a pandemic's going on now. And she's all about like everything that came with it, but she also has complaints. It's like, but you probably supported this. Like, if I don't know, I didn't get a chance to look into it. But if there's a housing crisis in New Zealand or Australia, which I think is where she is, like, what caused it? Why is it? Could it be mass immigration? Could it be inflation? Could it be the tanking of your currency? Could have like you want to blame men for this somehow, but I feel like it's probably somebody else's fault, a different group of people. But anyway, I want to jump to labor speech. I don't really care about that. 1125. Oh no, wait, that's this is Ben Griffin's Perceptions of Crisis in the History of Masculinity.
And companies that they own. It is hard for men to get any of those signifiers to be able to feel like a real man. Things are not good, and that's for any gender, not just men. Take a typical case.
Any gender, that is, all the other genders have it worse than men. That's what she should say. But
well, okay, so what about women's signifiers? Like, here's the thing. Like, what was the meme that men can just live in a room with a desk and a computer with a mattress on the floor?
Yeah, it's like men can just have this, and I forget what it is, but it's like I can't believe men can live like this kind of a thing, and it's just like an empty apartment with a futon, a TV, and a PlayStation or an Xbox or whatever, and that's it. And the men are like, yeah, that'll work. Like maybe a beanbag chair if you're feeling really luxurious.
I mean, look at like what women expect in terms of signifiers, like the McMansion, which used to be a big thing a decade ago when people could still buy houses, you know, and all the status symbols in the McMansion. And then the whole recently the TikTok or the Twitter thing with women saying they wouldn't date a man with an Android phone. You remember that?
Oh, I remember. Well, there's the list of icks, which is ever expanding, by the way. The list of icks
can really be concluded down to don't be poor and don't be feminine, men. Like there's one ick was having an umbrella or what was it, giggling? You know, finding things funny. Like there was one woman who was like disgusted by men when they laughed. It was anything expressing a human emotion or a frailty or a vulnerability. Anything that presented men as not of use in that moment it could potentially become an ick. That was men not being dangerous, angry, or not useful. So the only way that men could avoid becoming an ick or creating icks in women would be to be dangerous, angry, or useful. If you look at the entire list of icks, and we went through the whole thing, I remember multiple lists of icks trying to understand it. And that is my conclusion from all of the icks that I've seen. If you want to avoid women's icks, be dangerous, be angry, or be useful at all times.
Yep.
At least those women who write lists of icks. And you don't think that like does so really, who are men being this for? Who are men adopting this persona for? Is it because they're trying to attract other men? Like is that what this is? Are these guys like showing off their bone white business card? I don't know why she didn't realize that was satire. These guys are flexing their muscles. They're getting the fast cars. They are the fast, expensive cars. They're doing all of these things. They're pursuing this kind of macho. And they're doing it, of course, because they want to attract femboys. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It is not patriarchy. It is the tyranny of the femboy. Femboys are driving everything. Behind everything is a femboy and a man who wants to appeal to them by becoming more masculine, more dominant, more muscular, you know, by being dangerous. Yeah, that's what it is. That's who the men are. We figured out here, Brian. I think we've got it. Men are adopting these traits. They're making money, more money than they need. They're getting swole. They're becoming confident. You know, they're doing all of these macho things for the femboys. There we go.
That must be it.
That must be it.
I think that whenever what I'm noticing, I mean, I've seen this for a while, a trend of feminists not addressing the elephant in the room, which is when they make these critiques of society and they leave out if they leave out a gender and they keep it like gender neutral, then they're usually referring to women, but they don't want to refer to women. So they just say society, they just say, you know, civilization, they say modern world, whatever. Like they name the country, but they don't say like women. And that's because they really want to say women, but they can't because it'll kill their argument. It'll deflate their argument. And they're trying to sell women on this. So blaming women doesn't work. And then, but when it's time to address men, they will be very clear and say that it's men. So that's how you know. There's got to be like a term for it. It's like argumentum ad, you know, erasum womanum or something. But they just leave women out of the equation, even though they're totally part of the equation. Like when she talks about how masculinity equals capitalism, which she, you know, I'm going to put in quotes because I know when communists say capitalists, they're just talking about property rights, but they can't say property rights because property rights are everyone's entitled to those and they can't attack that. So instead they make up a word called capitalism and they attack that. And then they you know, claim a bunch of negative things that come with it. But a part of that they critique is materialism, which she will talk about, or consumerism, which she will talk about. And the truth is, she'll say, oh, it's the system, but who are the biggest purchasers? Is it men or women? We just talked about how men are willing to live well below, any luxuries that if they don't need to. They're just like, oh, well, I just want a place to live and food on the table and, maybe some entertainment and I'm good. And, but women are the biggest spenders. They're the ones who not only do they spend, they get money spent on them by men, but they almost always spend their money on themselves. And so like they have, the people talk about the wage gap, but the wage gap doesn't matter, even though it has been debunked endlessly, but it's irrelevant because what you make is not as important as what is spent on you. Like, what do you get? Right. And so men spend their resources on women and women spend their resources on women, and women also get resources from the government. Like, this is on average overall all the time. And yet they may spend it on like whatever because they have so much of it. And so then you get these feminists that essentially created the system that we're in with the things that they push for, and they come forward and complain about capitalism because they think it's like doing harm, and obviously they don't blame men directly for that, so they just call it capitalism, but then they say capitalism is a masculine thing. So this way they can blame men indirectly.
I think that we're pretty much going right out and blaming men at this point. If you're conflating masculinity with fascism, I think you're sort of blaming men at this point. And if you're saying that men are a problem in crisis and when they're confident, I actually think that men are a hell of a lot more deeper than this perception is allowing them. I think that like this perception is that when men are not capable of doing these signifiers that make them more attractive to someone, the femboys, right? When they're not able to attract a sufficient number of femboys, it's like they take they're a child and their toys have been taken away and they throw a tantrum. And that's a really simplistic understanding of the situation for men.
Yeah.
Right? And it's actually a very trivializing understanding. And I think it ultimately, at the end of the day, also trivializes women. But but I think at this point we can say they are pointing to men as the problem, men and masculinity as the problem. And I think judging from the fact that Bryony is a communist, I think that what she's taking aim at is men's identification with work and meritocracy. Because I guess if we get rid of that, we can have our perfect communist utopia in which no one works and manna falls.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen either, because she's going to expect men to work, just like not complain or not have opinions. Men, because somebody's got to keep her little Christmas lights on and her makeup coming and her cheap clothes. Like you can see how she's living, that she obviously expects the labor of men to continue, even if she doesn't think that women should work, or at least not work as hard. So I don't know. It's all rhetoric at the end of the day, designed to emotionally manipulate women, which, by the way, women are... I just watched a video from Quillette, but I already knew this. We've been talking about this for a while. Women are becoming way more radicalized than men are, despite all the claims that men are becoming radicalized. Besides all of the fear mongering coming out of here from people all over the place, women are becoming way more radicalized, and it has more to do with women operating in their peer groups online that exploit their let's say their desire, their agreeableness, and their desire to make everybody happy, I guess. Like I want to say compassion, I guess, but I don't know if it's quite right, but it's definitely exploitative. So
okay,
anyway, let's continue.
Of a skilled workman out of employment. He walks from factory to factory, knowing his own skill, but driven away each time because his labour is not wanted. The wife has probably gone into the factory. Think of the degradation of that man's manhood, that his own wife should become the breadwinner instead of himself. That was a speech from 1911 that the Labour MP James O'Grady made. Masculinity is something to be reaffirmed and...
Okay.
So a commie guy spoke about how hard it is for male workers and talked about emasculation, and you're using this as data.
Well, there is something to this.
Okay.
All right. She's essentially saying that, and somebody else pointed this out, during the Great Depression, there was no big uprising of men because they all regard it as a personal failing, right? And here's the thing. She's like, oh, he feels like he isn't a man. Yeah, he feels like he isn't a man. He feels like it's a personal failing that he can't work, right? And everywhere, those women, like if you read something that she's probably never read, of Mice and Men, okay?
Mhm.
Or no, actually I think it might have been The Grapes of Wrath.
Well, when she says the Labor Party, so that doesn't sound like it was like the guy was American. I don't know if it matters, but go ahead.
it's I mean, the Great Depression was around the world, and it might be something that relates, but in one of Steinbeck's works, there's a woman, a wife, who basically berates her husband and says, well, if you had a job, then you would be the man and I would listen to you, right? So there was pressure put on these men by women to provide. This wasn't just an identity that men put on themselves. Women also put it on men, and they shamed men for not being able to live up to that expectation of being a provider. And so we have all of these men out of work, and in some places this would have led to an uprising, but specifically in America and probably in the Western cultures, it didn't, because these men saw their inability to get a job not as a problem with the system, but as a problem with themselves. So what they're pointing at, what Bryony is pointing at here, I think I said that right, is that it was men's identities that kept them attached to this particular system. However, what they're doing is not saying, hey, this is a way that you're being constrained. What they're doing is they're actually insulting masculinity entirely and associating it with evil. And yeah, I think that's what I think that's what the analysis is that the attachment to the job is what keeps them in a position of servitude to the system, and they want to break the system.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they're not recognizing that any productive system needs to have a way to incentivize productivity in people. You need to give people a reason to work.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
they
you
don't
got-
want to do that. I don't think it's a mistake or an oversight. I think Bryony Claire just does not give a shit about men. Men are an obstacle. That's the obstacle, because when a man has like his meaning, you know, and she talks about like, oh, you want to work for Jeff Bezos? Actually, I think that a lot of men would just start their own business, but whatever. Like you will, again, as usual, women like this engaging in apex fallacy, where they look at the top guy. You want to work for the richest guy and the oligarchs? No, actually, most guys just want to start their own little thing and do that.
Mhm.
But again, she doesn't think that men who are that have like a mission, which is what men are looking for, and a lot of times that mission is, you know, taking care of your loved ones, protecting the people you love, your family, your friends, whatever, your wife.
Mhm.
That drives them to be like, you know, independent and work for themselves. And they're going to they do things like acquire currency and that kind of stuff. But that's an obstacle to these people because they don't want that. She doesn't want that. That's why it's not that they are not noticing this. They don't want to address this because ultimately they want us to live, I guess, in some society where somehow we just have shit and everyone shares it all the time and nobody works. And the idea that means that people will be purposeless is irrelevant. She doesn't care. And ultimately, like even in that, women will still at least be able to like reproduce, but men won't have anything and they don't care. I mean, they don't care. Like, I don't think this is an oversight. I don't think this is ignorance. I think this is evil and hatred of men and everything men stand for, because everything that she attacks, all of the systems, and that's why I don't make a distinction between feminists and communists, because there isn't one. Like to them, men and masculinity is the obstacle to whatever their goals are, whether that is, you know, control or
the desire for a merit-based system.
Yeah, which men need. And that's why she says, "Oh, do you really want to be competing with other men all the time?" It's like, actually, most of the time men just cooperate. So that's you're creating, again, you're creating, tension where none really exists.
Men don't compete against other men. They compete against goals.
Yes.
And outcomes and environments. Like that's, I mean, and then they do also compete against other men, but often in a cooperative way. I mean, even war is ultimately a very cooperative kind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a great deal of cooperation to prosecute. Yeah. So yeah, I think that, and honestly, like, look at all of this that's being presented as masculinity. You realize that this was all that feminists left to men. Like,
yeah, and again, it's all their cartoonish vision.
Yeah, cartoonish.
Superficial.
This is what's funny. Is like feminists constructed this stereotype about what masculinity is. They literally, like in the 70s, the masculine norms had all kinds of things like honesty, integrity, supporting your family and friends, providing and protecting, and going out of your way to sacrifice for others as part of masculinity. And they winnowed it down over the decades to Playboy. That's it. And all of these stereotypes about masculinity, right? And then feminists take their stereotyping about masculinity and say, well, why do men want to be this way?
Yeah. Yeah, this is all like advertising and fiction. That's it. And that's what they think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I said, it's
like man spreading, like here's like a guy man spreading, this is masculinity. Like, do you guys think, like, do you get on the train, you're like, I'm gonna man spread the shit out of this chair? Do you think that, or do you just sit down? Like, I don't know. This woman is, I don't think the thing that I know for sure about feminists is they do not understand men, and they really don't understand masculinity, and they have no interest in it. No interest.
Constantly under surveillance. Remember how I made my 2000 series years ago, and just how binary things were then?
Masculinity is constantly, wait. Masculinity is constantly under surveillance, and yet what sex is going on podcasts and constantly complaining about having to prove? Women, Meghan Markle, I have to prove I'm a good friend. I have to prove this, that, and the other thing. Which sex is constantly under surveillance by members of its own group? Is it really men? Because I'm pretty sure that men are not surveilling each other as much as women are, is what I was getting at.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like, for sure. For sure.
Like this constant need to maintain this particular quality about yourself, right? This performance it doesn't just require a constant feeling of inauthenticity, of trying to generate an impression in others. It also it also fears and desires constant surveillance by others, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot be a performance without an audience, but when an audience is present, you're being surveilled, you're being watched. Things are expected of you in terms of a performance. So I'm like, she's saying, well, it's this constant surveillance that men have against. Is that really true, though? Are men constantly looking at each other and, I'm going to find a crack. I'm going to find a thing I can drill down and make him feel insecure about himself. Oh, is that mustache a little bit uneven?
Yep. That's not men. That's not
men.
Nope. And you can look at the, if you're here and you're still trying to figure out what we could possibly be talking about, look up the data on bullying online. When women experience bullying from other women way more than men, and way more than even men experience from other men. Women are, like I've said many times, the social media is Call of Duty lobbies for women. Like, they are brutal to each other, and it's all the time. I mean, like, even, and very young too. So, and yes. That's because that's the social sphere. Like, women run that. They run that. So anyway, Go to Instagram or TikTok and you'll see. It's all women. But let's continue.
How homophobia was incredibly rampant and men had to constantly be proving themselves through these patriarchal masculinity structures. Like, my God.
Hollywood.
Hollywood creates all the content that you guys can respond to and then say this is reality. Like,
Why don't
you're
you just
delusional. What?
Yeah, I don't recall there being a hell of a. I mean, there was a lot of don't be gay kind of stuff, and also these are teenagers. Teenagers
Those
are
jokes.
constantly up each other's asses about being right or being like deviating from whatever standard they're upholding. They're still kids. They still got that little bit of psychopathy that kids have. They're just learning to be adults. So I don't know. I'm not convinced.
No. Though this is always being asserted that men do this, or at least suggested, but they can never really make the claim directly because it's just not true.
The term metrosexual existed for men that had a shower and didn't just do the sniff test before they put on an outfit. When I grew up in the UK, there was this chocolate bar called Yorkie, which was specifically targeted not for girls, so just for men. And that's because eating chocolate...
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Does that candy bar still exist? You see, like, this is her academic research. This is the extent of her rigor. There was a commercial for a chocolate bar.
Okay, no, but
do they still do those commercials though? Because I want to know. They should bring that. There's no way they get arrested. Because in the UK, they'd probably send the cops to the Nestle building or something.
Speaking of insecurity,
we saw your ad for the new chocolate bar. It was a little bit misogynistic, eh? Isn't it?
Okay, so men are insecure, but we can no longer have a commercial like this because it offends women's sense of self. Like, come on. Like, there are things that are now that people can't say in the UK because it offends women's sense of self and makes them feel insecure. Right? We have laws against women being made to feel insecure, and you're telling me that men are the insecure gender? Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like in Nottingham and some other parts, like you can get fined or arrested for flirting, wolf whistling. In Scotland, you can get in trouble for boasting about sexual conquests in public. And I mean, like, it's Scotland. Like, you go to any bar and there's probably guys there, probably wearing kilts, playing bagpipes and bragging about their conquests. That's what I imagine Scotland looks like. It's guys in kilts, bagpipes, and claymores. maybe some face paint.
Well, it's about as accurate as her perception.
Yeah. Well, exactly. If we're gonna lean into the cartoon, let's go all the way. All right. Let me see what the next bit is. Yorkie, it's not for girls.
No, let her finish
That's
their
what
thought.
It says. Oh yeah, sure.
Was considered to be effeminate. Their ads read things like, "You got the vote, be happy with that. Save your money for driving lessons. King size."
Love that. Not available in pink.
Oh God.
These are amazing.
I think all of this is now illegal.
Bring this back, please. I want that truck to be shaped like a giant penis. Let's just go all in.
All of this is now illegal because it made women feel insecure. They had to get rid of a fundamental part of democracy, which is free speech, because they felt insecure about themselves. And yet it's men who are insecure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
As not queen size. All of this in the 2000s was a backlash to the girl power movement that was happening in the 90s. Very important that men stay on top. And in order to be able to do that, you have to put women down. And
you know what? I actually read Christina Hoff Sommers' War on Boys. The thing that happened in the 90s was this whole reviving Ophelia thing, in which girls were seen as being suppressed in school, that they didn't have a voice, that they were being crushed. There was absolutely no evidence behind it. None whatsoever. So Gilliam was the person. She proposed this, and no evidence was required. People were just, oh, girls are victims of something? That has to 100% be true. No evidence required. And that's empowerment, is it? Being a victim of society is empowerment. Interesting.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, boys were actually falling behind in schools at the time, which is still unaddressed. And nobody cared.
Yeah,
Actually,
it doesn't matter because I watched Mad Men and American Psycho, and I know what men that's the truth about men. I mean, I saw it on TV.
And my stereotypes.
I'm
about
smart.
Men.
Yeah, my stereotypes about
My
men are real.
feminist stereotypes about what men are tell me that men, if they have problems, it's just because they got their toys taken away. Herp-a-derp. Yeah, it's just, and what they did with boys eventually is that they described boys as being victims of not being girls, like patriarchy forcing them away from behaving like girls, being like girls. So, and then they started medicating boys so that they would act more like girls, or at least more passive. And now we're finding out just how bad those medications were for their health. Yeah.
Yep.
Patriarchy. All right.
All right. So I jumped ahead a bit. We're going to talk about masculinity and let me see. This is 1915. I'm just double checking here. Yeah, she tried to talk about the 1950s because this is another thing that she does is she kind of front loads everything by saying these guys want to go back to the 1950s, but were the 50s good? But you'd have to be correct in your assumption that this is what these people you're refuting want. I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever said that. But whatever. Doesn't matter. She has to refute it. That way she gets to tear it down because she's an intellectual.
A love of strong men and state power, and politics driven by grievance and anger. That sounds an awful lot like the US, right? Who you fighting? At least in Les Mis they were fighting against the rich. You're literally punching down at people less privileged than you.
Ooh.
There was a clip from American Psycho. She's refuting Patrick Bateman, fictional character from a book written by somebody who
but
hated
who
men.
are these men in reality you're saying are punching down at who? Who are they punching down at?
Apparently it's basically just like the people who voted for Trump in America. Yes,
they are punching down at who, Bryony?
Women and minorities, even though a lot of minorities voted for him, but they were minority men, so they're just men now. So yeah, women.
Okay. Yeah, but how? How are they?
I don't know.
Down?
With their votes.
Where's the punching?
They're gonna take away all of women's rights and bring back the Handmaid's Tale.
For Trump, in order to punch women. And you probably think that because the Democrats artificially frame this around abortion rights, which I see haven't really changed significantly since he got in office, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't his mandate.
His mandate was not to oppress women and turn them into literally chattel like 100 or so years ago.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's almost like that wasn't what men voted for.
The same thing, I don't. Was there an appreciable difference between abortion rights prior to Trump taking office and after? As far as I can tell, no. It's just gone back to the states, and the states are making the decision. And he basically didn't he just say to the conservatives, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make a federal ban on abortion. Sorry." The end with that.
Well, I think so, but that was a while ago. Yeah.
It's just we're just sending it to the states, so nothing has changed. You made this huge thing, and nothing has changed. I remember I talked to Natty about this, and she was talking about, it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale. Oh, really? Is it? This is like 120 days in. Where are the handmaidens? Right?
Yep.
Now everybody's talking about the economy, which is an improvement as far as I'm concerned. A significant improvement over all of the bullshit you were talking about prior. So, and you really think that men voted for Trump to stick it to women? I don't want to defend Trump. I just want to defend reality. Okay? You think that men voted for Trump to stick it to women? No, I think they just voted for Trump because they felt like he actually understood what the word economy meant.
You would think a billionaire would understand that. Also, I think that there was a lot of men that were like, okay, look, we gotta like step up and make our voices heard. Like they left it mostly to women to like do it, but then the women just went crazy. Like I said, women are increasingly more radicalized, especially younger women. Like they're super radical now. It's not even close to where men are at. So okay. So anyway,
Well, somebody's saying 5 billion lost. What, I don't know if it's an improvement. Like honestly,
what are you
this
talking
was-
about?
Oh, he's talking about the stock market. The stock
No,
market.
no, the stock market. No, Trump doesn't control that though. People react to that, and yes, whenever there's a shakeup, people freak out and things happen to the stock market. But that's because they don't chill the fuck out and wait. That's got nothing to do with him. So yeah, I mean, like you get people to emotionally and like, what do I care if the fucking guy from like these multi-millionaire guys that run the stock? I don't have stock. I'm barely scraping by. Like most people don't have stock. You're talking about shit that affects like a tiny percent. I thought you guys cared about the regular guy, the working class people, not the billionaires that own like shit tons of stock. Oh, we care about them now? Okay.
All right.
Sorry, but I'm just saying. But
yeah, I know. It's
yeah.
Like I'm not going to sit again. I'm a filthy centrist or something. I'm a filthy men's issues advocate. That's my only platform.
Mm-hmm.
But this situation, we're still now talking about the economy. This is what we should have been doing at least my opinion, when we're talking about electing a politician.
Yeah.
Because it all comes down to that.
Well, yeah, it's like the money. That's it. Jobs, money, security. Like border security, military security, whatever. That's it. That's it. Women wanted to make it about themselves. We were done with that. So like that. And the thing is, yes, they're doubling down. They're becoming more extreme. They're becoming more radicalized. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, except, hopefully they'll shake out of it and realize that, men were doing what men did was not in their own best interest so much as everybody's best interest. They were just doing what they felt was right. And a lot of women voted for that too. So it's not even really just a gender thing.
Okay, I just want to point one other thing out. All right. The economy was going off a cliff. And I talked to Brian about this like some months before. The signs, the thing is that it's not even that the economy has been mismanaged by the government, is that fundamentally governments don't create economies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this economy came from a very specific single source about 90 years ago. What we have been enjoying, it sprang from something, and we no longer enjoy that thing. So everybody's going off a cliff regardless. And somebody actually doing something, probably better than doing nothing. That's all I can say. So I said then that Trump probably wouldn't be able to recover this, but nor would he make it happen, right? Because I don't think the government makes economies. Full stop.
Well, last thing on this, then we got to get back to the video. Like the government has been kicking the can down the road for a long, long time.
Yes.
There was no way that this guy was going to come in and completely fix it, because you're trying to reverse like several decades of damage. Okay. So the best we can hope for is that there's a first steps towards making it right. And then you just got to hope that the people make the correct choices in the future, that we can like get back on track. So this is not something you can blame on the current administration or even the past administration, because this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's all you can say about that. You can't, and unfortunately, it means there's going to be some short-term suffering, because you have to. Like it's like, you let your room get dirtier and filled with more trash, and you leave shit lying around, and then there's mold, and then you get cockroaches, and then you get rats, and eventually somebody's like, okay, look, we gotta clean this up. And it's gonna suck, but we gotta do it. And maybe you have to like replace some stuff, and maybe you have to throw things out that you you know, that just is like you can't salvage or whatever, and you got to get the Orkin man to come in and clean it. But it's you can't ignore it. You just can't let it just keep going. So that's just the way it is. That's just the reality. But anyway, back to the video, because that's not what we're here to talk about. Let me see. 1934, masculinity in crisis, and it's men's fault. Okay, yeah, golden age of was it ever real? Right. So 2021. Let's go right here, I think.
These young men are twice as likely to see Trump as a positive influence compared with the broader population.
It's the broader population. Whenever there's an absence of stating like a demographic, and it's a gender demographic or a sex demographic, she's talking about women. Like she's saying more men supported him than women. Yes, we know. That's what the election shows.
Okay. Yeah.
And then she like has this exasperated like, oh, like it's the worst thing. I can't believe it. They just don't understand.
Women were kept out of politics because this has become. Let me tell you, electing a president, electing a prime minister, that's basically electing a pit mechanic. All right. We shouldn't have this level of hysteria around it. No offense. We're not electing a god. We're not electing a king. We are not electing Satan, right? And we're most likely not electing Hitler, right? We are electing somebody who hopefully will do the least amount of damage to the thing that we all rely on to get from A to B. That's it. Why has it become, he's a fascist? Like, why has it become that? All of this hysteria, all of this judgmentalism, you know what I mean? Just this moral judgmentalism. Can he do the job? Is he going to provide a better service? Like this dramatization, this idea that the world is going to end. Like this is the problem that I have with all of this. It is too much. It is too emotional. It's a funny thing saying. It's just way too emotional.
It's emotional on purpose, though. It's like the thing is, this isn't about. I don't know how many times I have to say this. This isn't actually about Trump at all. It's just about men, and it's all about like how many men can we like. She makes a reference to Rick. I forget his name. It's like Ross. He's like a podcaster. Theo Vaughn, another podcaster. Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Donald Trump, JD Vance. What do they all have in common? They're all men. They're all men she doesn't like. Do you think they all get along with each other? Not likely.
No.
Not likely at all, right? Aiden Ross, that's his name. Aiden Ross. They're just men that are like, I guess you could say right of center, but I don't even think that matters that much. Because I think that ultimately they're men that are in the way. That's what it is. They're men that are in the way of what she wants. And what she wants, I mean, if you ask her, she probably won't be able to tell you because women almost never know what they want. But it's definitely not these men making any, like having any influence or talking to each other or whatever. Like, I mean, she basically lumps them in with Don Draper and Patrick Bateman. So, and those characters don't even have anything in common other than they're men. Like, that's it. They're men. That's what it is. Not Bob Ross.
Well, she says, well, the feminist stereotype about men is bad. Men should take responsibility for it. It's your stereotype about men. You're the one who thinks this about men. It's not the way men actually are. But the other thing is what I'm trying to get at is this, right? She's saying men think that Trump is going to have a positive effect, right? Like the guys are like, yeah, I think that he'll have a positive effect on the 10-year treasury yields going. And she's like, oh my God, it's fascism. It's like thinking in such incredible black and white when these guys are probably not even, they're thinking, okay, he's going to have specific good effects on maybe the economy, maybe not getting into more forever wars, this kind of thing. It's all more on a logical level. And she's taking it into this black and white moral extremism. Like, these guys are not gathering and saying, oh, we're going to stick it to women because we're all a bunch of evil Satan Nazis. They're not doing that. They're thinking about rational, positive change. Whether or not they're right is irrelevant. They're not thinking about being evil. They're thinking about very pragmatic, potential positive changes that they believe that Trump is going to bring into the world. That doesn't mean he's going to, but that's what they're thinking. You get what I'm saying? And she's thinking, oh, this horrible fascism. And it's like this kind of moral, overwrought black and white. It really is a female problem. Like they think politics is about excluding the bad men, right? Rather than who is going to functionally do the job or do the least damage, right? Who understands the word yield? Does Harris? I don't know. Like, okay.
Well, again, they didn't run anything except woman of color. That's what we got. You accept it. What are you, a bigot?
Yeah.
It's like, but you know that again, that the people who voted for this, they were just thinking about what made sense to them, and they did that, and that was it. But again, what she doesn't like is that he's a man. That it's none of the policy stuff matters. He's the man you're not supposed to like. She doesn't like him. It's like, again, Andrew Tate, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Trump, Vance. It doesn't matter. 4 years ago, it was Mike Pence. Now he's like, okay, because I guess because he's not liked by those other people, right? So it really doesn't matter. Like, it's just an emotional thing. That's it. It's me not getting my way.
Or Paxton writes in the book Anatomy of Fascism, the legitimization of violence against demonized internal enemy brings us close to the heart of fascism. For some, fascist violence was more than useful. Violence often appeals to men too young to know it.
Well, they wrote that it appeals to men, so it must be true.
Okay, which side of this argument said there are no bad tactics, only bad targets? Like, if you want to talk about extremist violence, I think you got your own to take responsibility for, not just push it on the right wingers who aren't actually really that known for their extremist violence, at least in the States, as far as I know. But it's like, yes, young men without a strong sense of themselves or their self-worth as men are attracted to violence as a way of proving value. It's like Noam Chomsky. No, not Noam Chomsky. Michael McLuhan said, people without identities resort to violence. People without a sense of self, like a positive sense of self-worth and connection, not just because they just exist, but that they can build something in conjunction with participating in society. If you lack that, you get drawn to violence. People without identities are drawn to violence in order to establish worth. It's a really, really sad thing. But this is as much a problem on the left as it is on the right. It's a problem of any kind of extremist rhetoric where you start talking about how violence is the answer and how there are no bad tactics, only bad targets. Like, anyway.
All right, I got a Rumble rant I forgot to read from earlier. NovaFan21 gives us $1. Do we get any super chows? We haven't got any super chows. And says feminists. Yeah, he says, feminists, you men have male privilege. Your benefits come at our expense. Men, never knew I had this, but I like it. Feminists, no, you're supposed to not want it.
It's sort of the way it is. That's what. Incidentally, that guy, the feminist we were originally responding to, I know that you were trolling him, Nova. You were role playing as a feminist Andronicus.
As the stereotype. I'm here smoking cigars, beating on women. Well, I don't know, and betting on horses, driving my Bugatti on the Sunset Strip with my aviators on and a humongous mustache. Take that, women.
Okay. Guys,
okay.
Send in those super chows. Feedthebadger.com/justtip.
All right.
Also, there was a comment in the special chat I wanted to address.
All right. Which one?
There's only one special chat.
No, I know, but which comment is it?
It was by this individual, Mike Morin. He was saying, why did the story around the tariffs change 3 times? I don't care. You're not getting the overall point. A discussion on the utility of tariffs is fundamentally in a different dimension than calling your political opposition a fascist, right? One is about how to deal with the system in a functional manner. The other is about moral black and white. And I actually read almost all of her sources. I do it for you guys. And I read all of the stuff about the definition of fascism. And essentially all it was is a bunch of people trying to justify using the word against somebody they don't like, right? I don't know why you guys, I honestly am utterly baffled why the left supposedly hates Donald Trump so much when he was okay with gay marriage in the beginning of his presidency. He actually protected states making decisions on abortion rights and opposed a federal ban on abortion. And he's actually deported less people than Obama. And by making it very public, he's also made it very possible for his actions to be scrutinized in that area. So why do you hate the guy so much? Because the thing is that I used to be pretty, I guess, left until I realized that in order to remain left, I had to start to defend corporate media, forced consumption by pharma, and all kinds of other crap that I'm like, what is this? This is establishment crap. This is establishment authoritarian bootlicking. That's what this party has become. You don't like the guy because he is anti-establishment. I mean, you could have an argument that maybe he isn't, but I think that's why you dislike him, right? Okay. But it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. The story around the tariffs, the fact that we're talking about tariffs and talking about the economy is a significant step forward over talking about calling our enemy the fascist or the bad word that's going to shut them down. This kind of moral black and white thinking. You all talk about nuance, but you have none.
Nuance for me and not for thee. All right, let's move up to the fragility of masculinity.
Especially with right-wing masculinity. And yet Elon Musk was begging people to please buy his cars, and even Trump did this whole, like, what was it, QVS sort of like, hey, you should buy this car, and like you saw what he was reading. It was literally just an ad read for Tesla. Speaking of Elon, gender-affirming care for men is highly prioritized. Just look at how much research has gone into erectile dysfunction in comparison to women's issues.
So gender affirming care is a men thing because research is done into erectile dysfunction. That's what she's saying. So that's pro male. Who benefits from men solving the problem of erectile dysfunction? Do women benefit at all? Do families benefit? Why do men do it? Is it just to have fun, or is it because they want to start families?
Yeah.
Why would a man like what's the significance of that?
What is she saying that there isn't?
She's saying that. Let me go back a little bit because she puts up a little blurb. It's not in her list of sources, but
research has gone into.
Says here there's been this is just like a random blurb. I don't even know where it came from.
5 times as many studies into male erectile dysfunction as premenstrual syndrome.
Despite less than 20% of men suffering from ED and PMS impacting 90% of women. Haven't we like addressed the issue of PMS though? Like, don't we have things for that?
Yeah, we do. First of all, and also I don't see a source for that, and I did not see anything in her sources for that.
No, I looked through her sources and I didn't see one for this
No,
either.
so this is not actually sourced. So this
Nope.
could be complete bullshit. I don't know because there's no freaking source.
Well, but even
She
if,
doesn't
let's say,
understand what sources are.
no, but even if we were going to say, take this as writ, the implication is that this is considered gender affirming care. And so, first of all, that's a separate issue from the way that gender affirming care has been used in common parlance in the last decade or so, which is specifically referred to people who want to transition from one sex to the other. So what you're doing is you're broadening the definition of gender affirming care, or at least you're repurposing the definition to essentially make men privileged in an environment of gender affirming care, because according to you, we have spent 5 times as many studies, or there have been 5 times as many studies into erectile dysfunction than premenstrual syndrome. So erectile dysfunction exists, women most affected.
But here's the other thing. A lot of this erectile dysfunction is for women.
Yes.
And it's also
I know.
for pharmaceutical profits. You know,
Yes.
those things, like, this is the other thing that really annoys me about the whatever this is. I don't even want to call it the left, the authoritarians, the obeyoids, the people who fetishize authoritarianism, right? They have taken criticism of things like the pharmacy, like the pharmaceutical industry, and they've turned it into, oh, we're just going to lay this on the feet of men. So this is men's fault. No, this is actually a result of possibly predatory pharmaceutical activity, right? You have to have 5 times as many studies to have Viagra go on a market. Okay? Because they can make so much money off of it. But Viagra itself, for example, has side effects that affect men. And it's also, you know, those ads where, I don't know if you've ever, actually, I think they might have been a Cialis ad, where they have the women and they're dancing in the street, and there's one woman.
They have ads for ED stuff, like Viagra type products.
Woman
Like,
dancing on the street.
it's women. It's women's testimonies. Like, oh my God.
It's women. And then there's this one woman on a bicycle, and she's got her feet up in the air, and she's so thrilled, and she dances into her house with her husband. That's an ad for erectile dysfunction. Why? Because it's for women. It's for women who want their partners to function in that way. So it's for women's sexual interests. So this is really unfair because there's a huge amount. And again, it's for women's sexual interests at the same time as there are actually pretty terrible side effects for men. You know, women can learn. They could just learn to live without that indicator of their sexual desire as they get older. So to preserve their men's health, but they don't want to, do they? Okay.
I got another Rumble rant, from NovaFan21. He says, if Mike Moran was a real man, he wouldn't leave the special chat, LOL. Whoa, dude. Whoa. We don't go around defining what a real man is in this channel.
No.
All right.
Erectile dysfunction in comparison to women's issues. But when we're talking about gender affirming care, think about the hair plugs or hair transplant, whatever you want to call it, that Elon Musk got. More men in Hollywood have had this or similar gender affirming care to target hair loss than you may think. But it's never referred to as gender affirming care, right? That's only ever for dirty, nasty others, you know, trans people, in other words.
Are you putting the trans wars on men's feet? Like, really? I'm sorry. Most of the people that I've seen who are really incensed over this are women.
No, Alton, it's men and society. That's what it is. It's men and society.
I'm going to have to reduce my eye things.
All right.
So I can actually see, or my...
Yeah, so now getting hair, trying to treat male pattern baldness is gender affirming care. And again,
right?
again, she's broadening the definition for that, but she's also, again, talking about like Hollywood celebrities, not regular guys, that generally like just kind of live with it. Like, oh, I'm going bald. Oh, well, like that's what most men do, right? Oh, I'm going bald. Oh, well, right. I guess I live with that. Maybe I'll just shave my head now. No, she's got to like, oh, look, you know, these rich, famous men are getting gender affirming care. Why do I fucking care what Steve Carell does with his personal life? He wants to keep getting work, so he's gonna get hair plugs or whatever.
Well, she's trying to make it set. But here's the other thing. So is all plastic surgery gender affirming care for women? In that case,
no, that's the patriarchy because of beauty standards, even though men legitimately do not like plastic surgery on women most of the time. But no, that's the patriarchy.
But seriously, like if that's gender affirming care, okay, yeah, you're right. If she's just gonna make that, she probably would make that argument.
Absolutely, she would. It's beauty standards, unfair beauty standards. Like literally, I just watched a video with Lindsay today about a woman who got a BBL. Do you know what a BBL is?
A Brazilian butt lift. They're very big.
Brazilian butt lift, and it's really gross, okay? But she had to get it removed surgically because of all of the problems she was having with it. Like it was like the incisions would apparently stink really bad, like necrotic stink, like something died in her butt cheeks, okay? And it was like this whole saga of all of this shit. And Lindsay and I were watching her talk about this, and I was like, men don't want this shit. Why do women think men want this? Like, just go to the gym and do squats.
Well, squats don't actually give you a butt. And honestly,
yes,
if you're a butt wonder, there's not much.
Like the BBL is just a shortcut for people who don't want to do the work. And the truth is, men generally, I'm fairly certain, don't want any of that. Like, unless you're really superficial, people who live in LA, maybe, but like most guys, no.
That's I don't know if that's really the takeaway. First of all, there's body types you just can't get a butt like that. It's just not.
Yeah, well, but then men are gonna have their.
But the thing is, here's what you do: you be reasonable, right? You be reasonable about your options. Like you're not gonna have like the perfect 10 gigantic booty. Fine, be reasonable about being not settling, but just letting go of the expectations of a guy who's going to want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the thing. Like somebody was talking about how women become more attractive, and I'm like, well, but at some point you just got to be like, okay, I have what I have, and I'll get what I get. The end. Right?
Most men are fine with that. Like unless you're trying to, like if unless you're like Shannon Sharp, who is like this fucking ex-NFL star millionaire who's dating like women a lot younger than him. Unless you're one of those guys, most men are just like, yeah, we're both gonna grow old, we're both gonna lose our looks. It's fine. Like that's just be comfortable, understand your mortality, and it's a lot easier. But we were getting way off. I'm just saying that the plastic surgery thing, men are not into that. Not generally, no. Like that. So you ladies, if somebody's telling you that men are creating those beauty standards, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. Okay. I think sometimes women get other women to do that shit to sabotage them. Honestly.
Yeah.
I do. I think they do. But anyway, let's keep going.
Gender affirming care is the same as when women get breast implants. And also, I don't want anybody mocking these guys for feeling worried and feeling like they had to get hair plugs or had to get Rogaine or whatever, all of the many things which guys can do to make sure that they have a fuller head of hair.
Oh, wait a second. Hollywood gender affirming care is a good thing. Aren't you for gender affirming care? Now you're saying you should just like yourself as you are. Well, why don't trans people
trying to have her cake and eat it too? She's got to be like not body shaming, but also shaming men somehow. So it's like, how do I square this circle? Why are these videos 50 minutes long? Because there's a lot of acrobatics that takes place, and it's very clumsy acrobatics.
No, Brian, it's the deep research that she does. She's
Oh, yes,
bringing
it's
us a
all the
lot of insight into the
Yes,
human
that's right.
condition.
We're just not ready. We're too low IQ for this stuff.
I
It's
I
so deep.
hope for the day that stereotypes about men are seen as gigantic social faux pas, just like stereotypes about other groups.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't. We could go either way with that. Everybody can be stereotyped or nobody.
All right, let's jump ahead. We're getting close to the end here. This is the fragility of masculinity. I think it's like 40 minutes. I'll go like right here, I guess.
Man in the living room. Hi, neighbor.
But you're not going to find me pitying a guy with enough money to end world hunger, which he still refused to do, even though someone provided him with the plans and exactly how to do it. Who
Are
also
you
allegedly
fucking
keeps on.
mental? Oh God.
He can buy the world. He can buy everyone in the world one meal.
Yes. Like, do you understand? 8 billion. Okay, so how much is Tesla or Elon Musk worth? Like, maybe 30 billion or 300 billion? I don't know. 1 trillion? Who knows?
You know, here's something funny that Bryony. I wonder why she doesn't ask Larry Fink to do that. He's worth trillions. Oh, but Larry Fink is one of your billionaires or trillionaires, rather. So we don't want to ask him. He's one of the good guys, but he's also not solving world hunger, even though he's a trillionaire. It's like by her logic,
the UN,
like BlackRock and Vanguard could solve this problem, but they're not doing it.
The UN, that if they gave him a budgeted breakdown of how 6 billion could end world hunger, he would do it. Yeah, they gave him the budget. Yeah, no. That there is no budget. They gave him a bunch of bullshit that wouldn't have worked. Like, this is the problem, okay? You dump whole bunches of food on other cultures, you are actually suppressing their ability to develop their own industries and their own businesses. It's sort of like you dump a whole bunch of welfare on Black communities, and what you end up doing is out-competing their men and driving Black men into social poverty. It's sort of the same thing. And then you also have the rise of warlords, because when you drop gigantic bunches of resources, then it becomes about controlling those resources and controlling the distribution of those resources rather than building them. It's an absolutely retarded idea. And it's annoying to keep having
It's not even childish. It's it's not even infantile. It is absolutely divorced from anything resembling reality. And Bryony Claire, with her 92,000 subscribers and all of the great, well, not great, but like rich feminist authors that she quotes, like bell hooks, that also make these same arguments, rich scholars, yes. A lot of them getting that USAID money, by the way, which probably why she's really like hating on Musk right now, even though he literally made a car that was good for the environment, which I'm sure she supported before she realized that he also wanted to do something good for everybody that made sense. But somebody in the chat said that Elon is worth $384.5 billion. And again, these people think that Elon Musk just has like that in his pocket, like cash. Like when you say so-and-so is worth this much, that doesn't mean that's what's in his bank account.
It's in his businesses.
Yeah, it's what he's investing that in his businesses and in his employees. You know, those people that you hate so much because you hate him. So anyway, It's just ridiculous.
And with the plans and exactly how to do it, who also allegedly keeps on seeking out women to impregnate in order to have what? To reach Legion level before the apocalypse. Musk's messages reportedly read, "We will need to use surrogates." And he's an absent father to goodness knows how many children at this point. I don't have pity for the billionaire who can literally afford every single luxury in the world, yet is insisting on making everyone else's lives incredibly hard in order to serve his own ego. Like, Elon is basically what happened.
How is Elon making your life hard?
He's one of the bad men.
How?
All of the bad men are bad.
Operationalize that statement, please.
No.
I just love. I'm going back to my reading of their article or her opinion pieces on fascism. They're trying to construct a definition of fascist that is objective, but frankly, they're trying to construct that while having the motive of simply wanting to apply it to whomever they don't like. And whomever they don't like, for whatever reason, are people who are not towing the line with this kind of disturbing government, deep state, corporate collusion, which itself is actually more of the traditional definition of fascist. So when you have this kind of entrenched deep state bureaucracy that ends up colluding with business to do things like force consumption on people, that's actually fascism.
Yes.
That's closer to the
Nothing outside of the
definition.
state, all things within the state.
Well,
Yes.
that's more communism, but everything in line with state control, and but really just this axis of collusion between corporatism and government, and that is the closer to the actual definition of fascism. And what they're doing is they're dancing around that because they want to be able to use the bad word against the people they don't like, but they're the fascists.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like, I don't know which it's sort of a chicken or egg thing. So, like, I don't know if, like, attacking masculinity so you can get to socialism and communism, or if it's getting to socialism and communism so that you can attack masculinity. I think that it may be the former, not the latter. But this is ultimately an attack. The reason why we're talking about this is not because we're debating the merits of fascism, of which there are none. Of course, these people always project anyway, and that's why it sounds like the thing that she's saying that we're doing is the thing that she wants. But it's ultimately because she's attacking men, and she's using proxies that she thinks are the best examples of the kind of men she wants to attack, that she's using to attack other men. So that's why I said, like, Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Donald Trump, Andrew Tate. It doesn't matter. They're all different guys, and they probably don't like each other from one, they disagree on this or that, but they're on the wrong side of her religion, basically. So anyway.
Happens when trying to keep up with patriarchal standards meets with hyper-individualism and capitalism. It's not the best, brightest, kindest, or hardest working that rise to the top. Oh no. And for a strange reflection.
So this is where she talks about the fragility of masculinity again. Let me just go back a little bit where she makes her case about this. It's after this, the breeding.
He's an absent father, to goodness.
Huh?
It's consensual, who cares? Also, none of these men are really right-wing. Like, really classically conservative at all.
No. Most of the guys were Democrats or on the left. And some of them still are in a lot of ways. I don't think Elon Musk has changed that much.
Is there makeup? Like, are those eyelashes gender-affirming care?
Yes. Now, it's not what women do. It's patriarchal standards. She is also not immune to the thrall of the patriarchy. So...
I am, though.
Just knows how many children at this point. I don't have pity for the billionaire who can literally afford every single luxury in the world, yet is insisting on making everyone else's lives incredibly hard in order to serve his own ego. Like, Elon is basically what happens when trying to keep up with patriarchal standards meets with hyper-individualism and capitalism. It's not the best, brightest, kindest, or hardest working that rise to the top.
What?
Operationalize this, friend. You're just throwing out a lot of insults.
She is just it's funny because she's attacking Elon Musk for being, like a spurg, like, because he is, right? Like, there's like several moments where she pokes fun at his awkwardness, and essentially, of course, because when you do that to a man, all of a sudden ableism doesn't exist as a concept anymore. All bets are off. Sure, he's on the spectrum. He's weaponized autism. He's nuclear like uranium autism, but then I'm going to ignore that because he's a man that I don't like. So all of a sudden, it's all free reign. That's why these terms, like, you know, ableism, ageism, racism, sexism, I'm done with them. They don't exist to me because nobody uses them consistently, and they're not really useful anyway. So because these people are going to just like, oh, well, you know, not now. Sexism, not against men. They have power. Power and prejudice, right?
Why would people in power have
no.
so many excuses for why they can be dismissed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for a strange reflection on today's version of masculinity in consumerist culture, we can look to American Psycho himself, Patrick Bateman. Another movie which has been horribly misinterpreted. The whole thing is a satire. A man who is meticulous.
Yeah, no, we know that, but we don't care. Like, yes, American Psycho is obviously a satire trying to take the piss out of men, and yet we memed it anyway because we don't care. It's like Fight Club. We don't care. We know what you're trying to do with Fight Club, with American Psycho, with American History X, with, you know, Mad Men. I don't know. There's probably other movies you guys can name. Joker, you know, but we're just going to embrace it. Okay, this is what you think about us. We're going to meme it now. Whatever. I mean, fucking Starship Troopers, you know.
Well,
about how he looks.
I don't think
she gets upset because she thinks that we don't have media literacy like her because she's, you know, educated, intellectual. But the truth is, we think it's funny that you get so upset that we raised this up. You know, Ryan Gosling, Ken from the Barbie movie, men were memeing, and they're like, "You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to feel a different way." And guys like, "Nah, I don't care."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
anyway.
I want to hear her
about
argument.
how he's perceived and the importance of climbing that corporate ladder and earning the admiration from
Are
others.
you
Well,
fucking
men,
kidding
really.
me? He looks like he
Masculinity
just
in
got a
highly.
cream pie. Like,
What?
I said he looks like he just got cream pied.
It's again, like there was it was very recent. There was a story where the writer of the original book, American Psycho, who I believe was a gay man, and he was trying to do a critique of, you know, consumerism and capitalism and materialism in the 80s, and like the whole thing was obviously the commentary he was trying to make. And he was baffled by the fact that so many young guys on the internet were making Patrick Bateman out to be a meme hero. And he was like, they don't get it. They didn't see what I was doing. They didn't understand my vision. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't care. Like we're gonna death of the author starts here now. We're gonna do it, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's see Paul Allen's interpretation of the movie.
If he said that this is a critique of materialism, that's what people have embraced.
Yeah, well, but again, who embraced it? Because you're showing me the men in the movie. Also, his wife or the woman he was supposed to marry was as bad, if not worse, than he was. But like nobody talks about that. Huh?
But he was also called out his fellow men for being
he was
sensitive.
Yeah, quit it with the anti-Semitic remarks. No, but he was also desiring something more. That was kind of one of the central things, was his struggle with, you know, like he didn't like that life. He wanted to change that, but his fiance was fine with it. She was like, well, this is the wedding. We had a plan like this, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, but the thing is that we can see that it's just a movie and it's not a documentary like Adolescence. It's not trying to be reality, right? And if you just see it as a movie, you don't let it like consume you in the same way that these people get consumed by it. Because if you guys notice, is something that I've said many times. These people, feminists, progressives, whatever, they will reference themselves to make a point about reality. So they live in perpetual delusion, referencing academic work by other feminists and other leftists or whatever. And also they'll reference pop culture made by people like them, because Hollywood is overrun with these people and they all believe the same stuff and they all act in this, you know, like it's all this like incestuous cycle of people passing bad ideas around. And when somebody steps outside of that and says, actually, no, that's all wrong, they lose their minds because they think you're shattering reality. And then
Yeah.
they try to insult you and say, oh, well, obviously you lack media literacy. No, you're feeding into your own bullshit endlessly. It's just an endless cycle of feeding. It's like the plug that's plugged in, like the power strip that's plugged into itself, and you think you have made something. And and that's what she's doing. That's why she has to make references to pop culture while also critiquing it to suit her, so that she comes across as slightly more intellectual than the people that she's using as a reference. And that's where it goes. That's the carousel of whatever this cult is. And when I say, well, I'm not part of that. I know what you're doing, and I'm just going to take what I like from it and ignore the rest. And they flip out. Oh, you just don't. Why don't you get what I'm doing? Why aren't you absorbing this propaganda? It's like, no, because I know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is that memes I don't think are meant to be taken seriously. I think people
They want you to. These people that why can't they meme? They can't have you taking things not seriously. Like you have to take it seriously. Like I'm supposed to cry at the end of American Psycho, I guess, or at some point. I don't know. I think it's hilarious. I love that movie. I know what it's trying to do, but I still like it. I don't care. So.
All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Consumerist times, like it was in the 80s, like it is now, it's allowed a lot of men to get in on this grift too. But brands also know that, wow, we can make a lot of money by making men feel like they need to buy all of this stuff to be able to be a high status man, right? So men have become these.
Are you flipping kidding me? Now you're basically projecting women's problems onto men, right? Which gender, which sex said having an affordable Android is an ick in men? Like, you are projecting status seeking through purchasing consumer goods onto men. You really are. That is not a male trait as much. I mean, I guess maybe for a certain subset of men, but for most men, they want to make money so they can afford a family. And they just want an average woman and have a bunch of average kids. That's it.
Yep. The average man wants an average woman so they can have an average family.
Yeah.
So
somehow I scraped my elbow. Oh, I know what had happened.
I think there's a little bit left, and this is basically the last clip.
I wiped out playing with my dog.
Oh.
These influences, so they rather think of themselves as leaders, but it's all still linking back to all of this stuff which people can buy, sponsored stuff and buy my course and all of this other BS. Because how masculinity is performed today is by wealth and clout. However, on the flip side, it is really important to suffer to prove that you're a real.
Oh, for the love, like, tell me you just do not understand. Like, I mean, you don't understand. It's like this argument I got into it with this person. Maybe I've mentioned this before. This woman who called me a pick-me. And she's
which one? Does it always happen?
Yeah, it was a comment train on one of the
X.
On not on X. It was
YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah, it was on the Honey Badger radio channel. And she said, "I hope men pick you." And I'm like, well, they sort of did, I guess. You guys support me. Is that considered picking? I mean, you support Honey Badger Radio. You've supported my projects. And she said, "Well, I hope you enjoy your sperm on the brain," or whatever pick-me's get from women or from men. I just looked at him like, it's not really about. Well, actually, what I asked was because at the very beginning, she was complaining about men not accepting the fact that it's always women who choose. So always women who get what they want from men. So men need to get on the same page and realize their worth is what women want from them. And then she ends up, well, whatever it is pick-me's want from men. And I'm like, well, what do you want from men? Like, this is how you define yourself, is in terms of getting what you want from men. But when I stepped away, I was thinking about it, and I said, she fundamentally doesn't understand it because she sees things in terms of what she wants from men And I'm looking at it in terms of what I want for men, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I want to see for men. So she's looking at it in terms of what she wants from men. And I'm looking at it, what I want to see for men, what I want to see happen for men. And it's like, this is the same thing. She doesn't understand men. Like, she just is talking about something that she has absolutely no understanding of. And it's really astounding because she's completely ignorant. And she's completely righteous in her ignorance. She thinks these examples are men and masculinity. She thinks feminist stereotypes are men and masculinity. Patrick Bateman is men and masculinity. Even though I don't know any man who wears face masks or like does face peels, right? Or obsesses over, or even knows the difference between, like, I don't know, bone white and china white, right?
Yeah.
Like, she thinks these guys are men. Don Draper is a man. Like, that's a prototypical man. So we're not even, we're beyond the step. Remember I said that feminists say that the average man has the motives of a criminal man and the means of an elite man. We're beyond that. Now men are just these guys, these Frankensteinian constructions by Hollywood, like Don Draper, which a man of that era said, yeah, there was no guy like that. I mean, maybe some had one of his flaws each, but nobody had that many disastrous flaws, because he's not a character. He's not a man. He's somebody's snuff porn. Like that.
Yep.
Like, and that's really what turned me off. I like watched this guy. I'm like, this is not a character. This is a fetish being shown on film, being shown through. But regardless, my point is, she doesn't understand men. Right there, she just made the most ignorant freaking statement in this entire thing. Men perform masculinity. No. Women perform femininity. They see themselves in terms of a performance. You are taking your cognitive framework and you are applying it to men. Men don't perform masculinity like an actor. They do it like a builder, right? They build. That is masculinity. They see themselves in terms of an external standard that they live up to. They see themselves in terms of their actions and their effect on the greater world. It's not a performance. It's an action. Do you see what I'm saying, Brian?
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand. I understand that because
if she
when I was
only
tested,
sees, yeah.
I got an overabundance of testosterone for a woman, but she doesn't understand that at all. It's beyond her comprehension that somebody could take an identity, not from the perception of other people, like from how other people see them, but from what they do and how they act in the world. And not only is this feminine, this is actually a type of feminine that's never grown up. Which, are you surprised looking at her? All right. So
no, obviously.
It's a type of feminine that never realizes itself in terms of protecting and providing anything else, but it's not even itself. You can't even conceive of that. Right? It is a feminine that hasn't even hatched. She is fetal feminine. She's like the fetal cells of feminine. And because most women at some point start to have to recognize their actions, they have to have a job, or they have children, or they get a dog, like something happens that makes them get out of that and realize that it's not a performance. It's actually your actions that matter. And I try to think about this and think, okay, where does this make sense? This behavior. And I can think of one anecdote that makes this make sense. I'm actually afraid of flying, right? And I have Xanax, and I have all these techniques that I have to go through so that I don't freak out when I go into a plane. And I sat beside a woman. I think I was going back from, I think it was like the Canadian conference. It doesn't matter. It's like, it was a men's issues conference. And I sat by myself beside a woman, and we talked. And it was interesting. I think she's more of a conservative. She had a ranch that she worked and that kind of thing. And she talked about going through some really serious turbulence with her kids. And she was absolutely terrified. But for her kids, she pretended it was a roller coaster ride so that they didn't get traumatized, because if mom is okay with it, then it's not really that big a deal, right? Now that's a performance, and it's a performance that's actually to benefit someone. So maybe that's where that kind of femininity, that feminine performance, is actually necessary, because at the end of the day, she has to perform being calm. She has to perform, oh, this is fun, even though she's screaming inside, because otherwise her kids are going to be traumatized. So maybe there's a purpose to feminine performance. However, I don't see any purpose to this. And I don't even think she understands what I just said. Because at the end of the day, it's a performance, but it's a performance she wants to be seen in a certain way, but she wants to be seen in a certain way to protect someone else. And I don't think Bryony, I think that would just blow her mind. The idea that she's defining herself in terms of the benefit and well-being of another creature. That isn't her, isn't Bryony. Okay, that was a long digression, so.
It's all right. I got a super chat. I think we should end it up here.
We didn't get a super chat.
It's not a super chow. It's a super chat. Senior Sticks gave us $2. For some reason, it didn't show up in my chat, so this might have been from a while back. I'm sorry. About a half hour ago. And he says, there is always the Libertarian or Green Party. Thank you, Senior Sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, she would probably hate you for that, though. She would hate you for that because, well, yeah, because you're throwing your vote away. It's not in service to whatever she wants. The point, it's not about who you vote for unless you're voting for what she thinks you should vote for. It's about the fact that you're making, a choice without her consultation. That's really what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, thank you for the super chat. Okay. So I think that's it, really. I mean, she just references more movies and TV shows, and we've gone for over 2 hours, so she doesn't really have anything except men should be essentially, deference, should express deference to women, basically.
Yeah, deference to women. She doesn't understand male cognition. Like, that's why she says it's a performance. She doesn't understand, no, men take an identity from their actions. It's why they don't necessarily have as much of a concern over people's opinions that women do. And it's impossible not to notice how much concern women have over people's opinions. Like that one exchange that I saw on Twitter in which a woman was arguing about how Zoomer men are evil because they don't think women have an internal life. And I pointed out that the only person who could know that is her. So she's literally saying that I can't recognize my own internal life unless it's signed off on and validated by someone else's opinion, which is exactly what they're saying, by the way, when they say that women don't have an internal life. Like, they basically are saying everything that women are has to be signed off by the opinions of others. But this is not about that. Like, seeing yourself in terms of an action or a goal is not about seeing yourself in terms as a performance for the opinions of others. So she doesn't understand that. She doesn't understand the worth of it. And she doesn't understand how that mindset might have resulted in the development of the very systems that allow her to exist. So she's going to be like, oh no, masculinity is fascist. And the only way that men cannot be fascists is by becoming feminine or serving women utterly without ever back talking. It's ultimately, there's no room for independence in this. No room for men's independence. So what does that mean? It means we no longer, if women like this are in power, and they are, we no longer get to enjoy the benefits of men's mental toolkit or anything that comes out of it. So kiss the economy goodbye, kiss the utilities goodbye, kiss garbage collection in Birmingham goodbye. You kiss it all. Everything that men mostly do, kiss it all goodbye. Sayonara. Yeah. And we've chosen.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through my notes that I took on her.
Oh,
I
yeah,
went
right.
through every single one of her sources, which they aren't, by the way.
Oh, they're just news articles.
They're just news articles.
Most of them are news articles from like MSNBC and shit. The Guardian. Yeah. Like, really? You get paid for this? She has like a bunch of patrons that she like get. Like that you get. She probably is taking up. She's probably getting some money from fucking 3-letter agencies even now.
Yeah.
So, I know that these women get paid. I know that. All right.
Well, regardless, it's just there's a timeless essence. Okay, so this is one definition of fascist. Can we just say, well, there's a timeless essence that can be downloaded on any period, and that's what we're seeing right now. It's a timeless essence, fascism. What do you think the debate over whether Trump is a fascist has become so trenchant in the last couple of weeks or month? This is one of her resources on what is fascism. I mean, we could have known who he is since 2015. He certainly ticks off a lot of the boxes if you want. He's illiberal. He leads a mass emotional movement. He's a charismatic leader in his own way. His movement is very much rooted in blood and soil, a really bizarre fascination with masculine supremacy and power. Really? Is there a really, like, is, okay. I mean, check. Wouldn't masculine supremacy and power involve all men, not just one man? This is the thing, like, the strong man is strong because all the other men are weak. Like, a society where all men are strong doesn't invite strong men. It actually invites cooperation and consensus. It's like, Gaddafi, before he was deposed by whatever, American interests, I think, deep state interests, he said, like, there's no secular society. Like, there has to be a strong man because all the tribes are at each other's throats. But if you have a system where all men are seen as having authority, and authority through their moral excellence, like in Christianity, then you end up with a system that is actually very good for cooperation. But anyway, all right. Tearing down masculinity leads to strong men. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it all gets, like, why does Andrew Tate get so much attention? Because there are a lot of men who have been told that masculinity is worthless, right? There wouldn't be an Andrew Tate if everybody was still pair bonding and men were seen as having great deal of value to society. They wouldn't need the guy.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so I did look through all of her sources. She was trying to, I swear to God, she was sourcing through brute force. Like, she was pretending like she had done all this research through sheer brute force. A lot of this stuff didn't seem to really relate. I'm still quite curious about, maybe you can answer this.
What?
Ugly laws. The ugly laws.
Ugly laws.
Yeah. She said that, I guess one of the things that she was theorizing is that JFK is going to institute a bunch of laws against autism. Wow, Elon Musk.
I think they're going to test kids.
Number one.
Test. Well, I know the UK is doing a thing where they're going to test children who want to transition for autism. Because that is like there is a correlation between children who want to transition and autism. And so I guess they're trying to, like, take steps not to, like, do something irreversible to a child And
Mhm.
of course, people like this are freaking out about it. So,
She
it's
has
just
a
really-
lot of boobage going on here.
You're not. I don't know, Allison. I'm not allowed to look at that. You are.
I wonder, can we talk about the thematic implications of that?
Of what? Of the boobage?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have an opinion. I suspect that there's like straight up machine guns under there. So I don't trust it.
She's a fembot.
Yep. It's one of those Austin
Armed-
Powers fembots.
Armed to kill.
like,
I mean,
one
she
of the-
almost looks like it.
Yeah.
No, does she not? Well, maybe she's a little bit. If you squint. Okay. Once again, I'm going to tell y'all, if you want to send us a message, go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way to send us a tip and a message. I apologize for putting that thought into people's heads. And yeah. Do you have any final words, Brian, before we head out?
These people always project, and she's no exception. So like the thing that she's warning against or trying to warn against is basically the thing that she wants to do. And it's clever in a way because she's using the one thing that her audience is already primed to fear, which is men, in order to push the message. And again, I will remind you that women are the ones that are becoming really, really radical. And there's a pretty decent video on Quillette that talks about it, but we have talked about it on here already. And it is a product of the social environment that women, young girls especially, are growing up in. So Bryony Claire should probably like talk to the women, but of course she doesn't want to change that. She wants them to be revolutionaries, violent revolutionaries even. But yeah, I mean, we're seeing it, and there's going to be more female violence as time goes on, and we'll see. Feminists are not going to say anything about it, but we will, because that's what we do. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, take it away.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed in the show today. You'll find a link to the full video in the description of this one. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.